Not only do I have an amazing woman to bounce off, but we can all bounce off together. Way fun.
Watch out.
Oh, you're all going to get to know me now.
Hide your energy. Welcome to the Human Experience with Bree Roux and Lysa Black. We are so blessed today to have Lysa here in our presence. Lysa is a heart healer, she is a business coach, and she has written not one, but 3 books. No easy feat for someone who's under 40. Thank you so much for being here. I am so excited.
Deep dives, honest, transparent conversations are my favorite thing.
What do you have to say about following your bliss? And how does that work with the inherited perception that we have to slave away to get what we want?
I think we are all really aware of people in our lives who are following their bliss, people who are driven by their passion or their purpose, and it's incredibly infectious to be near. Whenever we're around someone that's enthusiastic and excited about what they're doing in their own lives, it invariably infuses a perspective within us.
Yeah.
The challenge is to pinpoint what that is for us specifically.
Yes.
And what I really love is that every day our own emotional awareness is relaying the most precious data for us, straight from our hearts, for us to personally view what is it that actually lights us up.
Yeah. And I think I know that question is coming up, so we'll pause there. But then how does that work with the inherited perception that we have to slave away and then one day we get what we want? Hey.
Well, it's just an illusion, and we've seen with our parents that actually wasn't fulfilled, and that we know so many people who have dedicated years and such amazing service to not actually end up with what they wanted. And this actually hooks back into selfishness.
Yeah, it does.
Because there's a real vulnerability for us to confide in ourselves and other people that we really truly want something.
It can be the scariest thing.
The scariest thing, because if we don't get what we really want the most, we're afraid of that loss. But by ignoring it, we're delaying it and depriving it from coming into eventuality anyway.
Yes, and that would make us very sad. When we are coming up against conflict of the heart, do you have any advice on effectively communicating from a place of neutrality?
Good luck.
Yeah.
Trying to be neutral is just trying to keep the ocean still. For me, it's a good intention to want to get to a neutral place, but I think what's more important is to have compassion for the volatility that precedes it. What I find is that women want to be able to have these very vulnerable, very poignant conversations with their partners or their close friends or employers, and we kind of save up this special conversation till this pivotal point, and then we expect ourselves to relay it from a neutral point. And it's absolutely impossible as a highly volatile creature that I am. I think it's really impossible. My approach is to have the sacred conversations with myself first before I bring it to somebody else, where I can witness my own volatility. I can be very present with myself and hold myself in compassion, and it kind of just takes the volatile waters, we're writing it down in our journal, we're witnessing it, and then when I'm actually having that conversation with the person, there's still going to be waves there, but you're already aware of that climate.
Absolutely.
And the love that you have for it brings this beautiful open space to it.
Yeah, and I think because like you said, because you've already processed it with yourself and sat with what is it that I need and what is it that I'm wanting out of this, and deep diving yourself first, then you don't have to go through that process with that person, which can be very confusing and then put people on and confronting. Yeah.
I think by being able to perceive other people emotionally has given me beautiful information to be a more effective communicator in the world, because I understand that everyone is anxious about being exposed, they're vulnerable for their sensitive areas, and so am I. And I think that has given me a lot of courage to once again be someone who models this honest, open-hearted way of directly communicating heart to heart. what I find is that when I lead with an open heart and honest, transparent communication, they will follow.
Absolutely.
And that's the goal, right?
You encourage and you role model that this is a safe place. I've been there. I know how to navigate this. I can hold my own emotional well-being. You don't need to hold that for me. And I think when people feel safe with you in your emotional space, that then makes them feel safe to step forward. What do we have here? Oh, cool. So this was in relation to the question that I asked you before about the bliss. And it's how does one tap into their purpose? Because what I feel is that a lot of the time in my work, people are like, yeah, but how do I know what I want to do? And so I think that's a really good question.
Yeah. Our purpose is actually in a place that all of us don't like looking very much, and that's our past. I teach that our pain is our purpose, and the significant events of our lives, we're actually charting out a very sacred course for you to evolve as a soul. And for me, not feeling really held and loved and nurtured by my own mother was actually the powerful impetus for me to emerge as someone who has a high intention of holding anyone before me in love. And that's a huge part of my purpose, is to be able to offer compassion to anybody.
Wow.
But without that experience of really feeling concerned that I might not have been loved in those pivotal, family experiences, was soul crushing for me. So what's important, and you'll notice this with your friends, is that we judge suffering based on the experience surrounding it. But the truth is that what crushes every one of us individually is so unique. And that information is so precious and so profound. And if you are courageous enough to really look back and look at what crushed you, you will actually see hallmarks of definitive moments that allowed your truth to come forward. And for me, I just looked at my past so much that I saw I was writing stories and reading them to people in primary school. I was coaching friends in class when they couldn't understand a problem. I'd be like, I would interpret the teacher to help them understand. And for me, I started witnessing. I heard someone very profoundly say, figure out what you can't stop doing and learn how to make a career out of it. If I go to a party, I want to emotionally check in with people and go, how are you? What's happening in your life right now? And obviously, some people are very offended and irritated by that, and some people love it. And I've had so many strangers just open their hearts and confide the most personal information with me. So for me, I think we think that our purpose is meant to feel like bliss all the time, and I think that's the misnomer. That with purpose comes resistance. If you're deepening into the truth of who you are and following that path of expression, it's going to lead to your purpose, but you're going to have to face ego resistance every step of the way.
Oh, good question. I want to know the answer to this. How do you protect yourself from different energies, and do you have any rituals surrounding that? Help us.
I'm going to give you what I've found to be the most profound for me, although it might not be right for you. But from my experience, the best way to protect myself from other people's energy is to tell myself the truth about what's actually unfolding in that person's world. So being an empath, clairsentient in particular, I would always feel other people's emotions in my tummy and in my heart, and that was the source of a lot of trauma for me. And there is a great way that we can observe rather than absorb. And so what I find for sensitives or people who are highly intuitive or empathic is that we reject the truth that we know what's going on. A lot of people will give you a smiley face and they'll look well presented, and deep down you know that they're lost in misery or self-doubt or confusion. And I think what we do is sometimes we try to buy the illusion, and then I think that mucks us all up, and we get really affected by their disharmony, by their lack of rapport within themselves. For me, when I tell myself the truth that that smile is fake, I feel fine.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's the same with, it's interesting because a lot of people struggle with energies that are really harsh and mean, and they put people down, and they make other people feel less confident. And it's really interesting because when you delve into the truth of what that person's going through, it's actually inadequacy, inferior, feeling not good enough, and that's their way. And one of the greatest quotes that I just always keep coming back to is, one of the greatest mistakes we can make is thinking that other people think the way we do. And that's been a really, really big one for me to go, not everyone thinks or behaves with their pain in the same way, so get better at understanding and reading people. Oh yes, what are some tips to come back to yourself after you've been triggered by someone?
Great. The breath, of course. One of my favorite ones is placing my hand on my heart. I will just start an internal dialogue and just go, hey, Lysa, I'm here. How are you doing? Talk to me. Tell me what's happening. I actually start my day by connecting with myself so that I always know that I am there for me at any point. So when I am triggered, I already feel nurtured and held within my own care.
Come back to the self, come back to the heart, create the conversation with you. Hey, check-in, how you doing? And I think that's such a powerful thing as you get older, and if you've done, a bit of work in your time, to know that one of the most powerful things you can do is to have that conversation and check in with yourself.
Definitely.
How do you know when to surrender to something or when to fight for it?
Oh, it's so hard.
It's so hard.
Yeah, I mean, I think this question needs to be put into a new context, that there's a polarity to every response in life. And surrendering or fighting is one of the ones where it's like catastrophic. There's like, he backs up against the wall, it's really serious. And I think it's really, really important that if we don't have the capacity to witness ourselves and know ourselves, we can't discern whether to go left or right, whether to speak up or stay quiet, or whether to surrender or fight. That it's the self-awareness and perception of what we need. Our relationship with ourselves is the only place. There is no hard and fast rule, because what is the same for you wouldn't be the same for me. And at different stages of my life, right, I've needed to do different things. What I find is a common rule for all of us is that if you're a surrenderer, you need to learn how to fight. And if you're a good fighter, start learning how to drop it, let go, and fall back.
I love that.
Because we need both responses in life.
Yeah. How do we manage our core wounding when we are in the early stages of a relationship?
You don't.
Well, I'm pretty sure it still goes on,
I think what's important is to understand that if we see relationships as places where we're happy, then our core wounding, right, is going to be at ends with that intention. But if we see relationships as places where we evolve and grow, then all of a sudden that core wounding actually comes into play in a very productive way. My husband, his core wounding dances beautifully with my core wounding. And one of our philosophies in our marriage is that we take turns. So we'll kind of prioritize who's most in need of being held in compassion. Because there's times, right, when I'm really lost in my story, lost in my core wounding, and he's watching that. Remember, he's not affected by my wounding, and that gives him the position of being a quality observer. And he can witness me. But what happens is if we're in a relationship where we're both trying to be happy and our core wounds, we're going to look for someone who doesn't have core wounds. They don't exist.
Yeah. I am having another eureka moment because I think a lot of us, and forgive me if I'm wrong here, do think that, have this expectation that our relationship's just going to be happy.
Yeah.
And I really like that you switched it. And you said if we view our relationship as a place for us to deepen and grow, then yes, being triggered is so crucial.
So good.
And so good because it allows us to come back in, meet ourselves, and identify what it is that we want.
Because our truth hides right behind our wounding.
Yeah.
So if we don't have a safe place where we love someone so much and we can hold them in compassion when they're lost and they're wounding, and then they can do that for us as well, there's never any opportunity for this profound, radiant, brilliant version of ourselves to come forward. So for me, 12 years after being married to my husband now, I am more like him, but I'm a far more evolved version of myself, because he didn't believe all the stories that I first told him in the first 5 years of our marriage.
Who or what influenced your spirituality, and how did it come about?
I was raised in a very fundamental Christian religion. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, commonly known as Mormon. So I've gone to church most of my life, and one of the things that I find is that I have a very conservative religious background, but I always felt the presence of a Heavenly Mother in nature. I was somebody who always could feel something akin to a nature spirit or a fairy. The author Shakti Gawain was very pivotal for me, because she pioneered a lot of consciousness and personal growth work right back 100 years ago. And for her, it's all about deepening into the awareness of the self, trusting the self, and allowing ourselves to live intuitively. So I'm a little bit of a walking, talking paradox in so much as fundamental religious. I still go to church now, and yet I'm working as a healer and somebody who is intuitive, empathic, psychic, and I listen to my ancestors and I listen to what the fairies have for me to say too.
I think that is so powerful and such a great message for our listeners, because I think there are a lot of people who do sit in Christianity and feel like they are moving outside of their commitment to Christ if they go on the other side of spirituality, and there's a lot of fear surrounding that. And I think it's so cool for you to embody it and embody it fearlessly and be able to comfortably sit across both.
That's it.
Last one. Oh, it's sad. How does one find balance in stressful situations?
Once again, I just come back to you don't find balance in stressful situations. You polarize. We react, and we, when stress erupts, we all have a unique stress response, coping strategy, and mine is to take control, mine is to talk. And so in the early years of my marriage, my husband would shut down, go quiet, and just sit there. It completely confused me, because I didn't know that we all have such different stress response behaviors. And I think we really need to understand our loved ones and understand what they need and honor that. So my son needs space. If he's stressed, he needs a cuddle and he needs to have time on his own. My daughter needs to be sung to be reassured and pats on the back. If someone patted me on the back and sang to me when I was stressed, I'd probably get more irritated. And I think it's really, really...
Can you get your hand off my back, please?
Yeah, like my husband needs to be in the dark. So if I'm talking at night, I like the light on. I like to see what I'm talking about, see someone's facial expressions. And so if he's stressed, I'll leave the room and I'll turn the light out as I go and leave him in the dark, because that's what he needs.
I think that's such a great point, that just because someone is reacting or responding to stress or conflict differently, such as withdrawing or needing space and time, what that means, or can be construed at, that thing of our biggest mistake is thinking that other people think the way we think.
That's right.
What that can be construed as is that person doesn't love me, they don't want to connect with me, but really they do love you deeply, and they need to take that time to recalibrate. And it's so interesting just understanding that we are all going to respond to stress so differently, but don't make that person's response to stress wrong, because it's not yours.
Absolutely, and don't make yours wrong either. That because we're afraid of hurting other people, we try not to give ourselves what we need, but then that exacerbates it for me. So if I'm stressed, I speed up and I try to take control. And because I know that, I can watch myself speeding up and I actively slow down. And and I go, oh, you're stressed. Like I observe it, state it, right? Tell the truth to yourself. I see you're stressed. And then I'll just come back to my breath and I'll start, what was it that happened? What was it that put me into that alert or overdrive?
Well, I really don't want this conversation to come to an end. This has been so enlightening for me. I've really had some big eureka moments, and I just feel so blessed to have had you in our presence. I hope you guys got just as much outtakes and moments as I did, but thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining us today.
I adore you, Bree, and I'm so grateful to co-create with you. I think more of us need to understand that our unique experience is shared by so many others and that we're not alone. So may we all deepen into our humanity and rise on purpose. Hey?
The human experience. Yay. Thank you.
I'm Lysa Black on The Human Experience with Bree Roux. Check it out.